what's up, everybody? Yes, today, the day after, right? I think we've all mourned this morning. Now we're getting through the afternoon and still continuing to break down and question what just happened. The Green Bay Packers in week 4 going Thursday night football against the Detroit Lions lay an absolute egg in what winds up being kind of thankfully a 34-20 defeat. Could have been much worse than that. Lord knows it started to look like it was going to be worse than that. So ultimately a very, very bad, poor performance by the Green Bay Packers, offensively, defensively. Heck, not even special teams was great, although shout out to Anders Carlson for continuing to perform, but still even some baffling decisions of special teams as well. Really not too many positives to pull from that game at all. In fact, there were some things that were just baffling. I know one of them was massively talked about earlier online about how the Packers, there was one particular play where they had 8 people in protection, and not even 8 people in protection could defend the Lions front 7, which is just laughable because you have to question, how does that even happen? Like, you at least have some form of NFL players. Granted, they're all your backups, sure, but like there are at least some form of NFL players out there, and they just get blown right through. So lots to talk about, blocking very much included, other topics as well. And so I figured today, rather than putting out a pre-recorded content where you basically just hear me go off about all these different things, thought I would go live, chat with you, see what's going on in your heads now as we get closer to 24 hours after this game. One quick programming note, though, on Monday, now that the Packers are in kind of like a mini bye coming off Thursday Night Football and heading into a Monday, I'll actually go through like pre-recorded content where I break down the game, offer solutions as well, not just the negative takeaways from what happened last night, but solutions too about how the Packers could move forward. But then in addition to that, tonight, I've done a joint show with Wisco Fanatics before. 8 p.m. tonight, I am joining up with them again, doing a guest spot on their show, where I believe we're going to stream it on this channel as well. But again, looking at all things Packers, looking at what happened in week 4 against the Lions. So let's just start off with a few of the big, like, hot button issues, right? The Packers can't defend the run. We're 4 games into the season. 2 of their opponents have actually run for more than 200 yards thus far. Yeah, miserable goat. What's up, man? And yes, that's topic number 1, right? When are we going to be able to consistently stop the run? The terribly sad truth is, given how things are, not anytime soon. Schematically, the defense is not set up to stop the run. Personnel-wise, it's not set up to stop the run. You can almost go position by position on this starting defense and say whether the person was put in their place because they're better at pass pro or better at stopping the run. And for almost every single starter defensively for the Packers, it's because they're better at pass rushing or guarding the pass, right? So, like, look at your nose tackle, TJ Slayton. Run defender or pass pro? Probably run defender, right? We'll give him that one. Kenny Clark. Really good at both. Probably slightly better at pass pro. Devontae Wyatt, first-round pick last year. Better at pass pro than he is run, for sure. Even depth on the defensive line. Kobe Wooden, more pass rush. Or let's go even farther than that. Carl Brooks, maybe half and half, but he doesn't have a world of experience defending the run at this high of a level. Okay, then looking at the edge, the one flaw in Rashawn Gary's game basically throughout his entire career thus far is setting an edge. Preston Smith on the other side, he's a capable edge setter, sure. He hasn't done it very much this year. Looking at inside linebacker, who was there last night? Isaiah McDuffie, yeah, he's a run stuffer, but he's also a bench player for a reason, because normally it's Devondre Campbell. Quay Walker, he's certainly better in pass. And then you get into the secondary. And no one in the secondary even has the vague pretending notion to be like Charles Woodson back in the day, where out of the slot they can really interrupt the run, or even Jair Alexander pre-shoulder injury when he would really get in there and mix it up against the run. Jair doesn't do that as much anymore. And Nixon, while having some good coverage traits out of the nickel, he's not exactly someone to mix it up there either. I mean, even Nixon had 2 missed tackles last night. So it's like top to bottom, roster wise, this just isn't a team that's built to stop the run. They're built to rush the passer and to defend the pass, of which they do that fairly well, unless they're giving up easy completions and way too spaced out of zone. So when are they going to stop the run? Anytime soon. And it goes a lot farther than just scheme. One thing I do want to mention with the defense, at least according to PFF last night, they had 13 missed tackles. I think that's incredibly generous. Like, you could go watch that game again. They absolutely had more than 13 missed tackles. I think that was quite kind from a bookkeeping standpoint. And then Matt Schneidman for The Athletic, he wrote 2 weeks ago against Atlanta that he felt as though they had 21 missed tackles. My overall point here is, no matter what the scheme is, no matter what, if you forget how to tackle while playing tackle football, you're not going to stop the run. You're just not. And the Packers last night and against Atlanta just couldn't tackle. Like, that's it. I mean, pair with 2 spaced out of a scheme, pair with personnel that doesn't stop the run, pair with guys who don't know how to tackle, and there you have multiple 200-yard rushing performances. I won't deny anything. Like, it's terrible. The team looks bad. They can't defend the run, and yet this is the way that they're built. So what's the easy fix? What's the quick solution? There isn't one. Like, they're going to have to radically change scheme, radically change how they're using some of their personnel. And I just don't see it being a quick fix. Let's see. Peter, what have you got? Hello, Peter from France. What do you got? I, John, never saw LaFleur that pissed off face in the media. The way he answered a journalist, the BS question says it all. Can we understand Joe Barry's days are numbered? I would be very, very surprised if if his contract is terminated in the season. It's just not the way the Packers generally do things. I would be very, very surprised. Now, today, because I know exactly what you're referencing, that BS question, like, yeah, LaFleur was downright pissy last night, as he should have been. But yeah, today in his press conference, LaFleur was much calmer. You could tell that he had removed himself in the evaluation process, all of the calm down stuff. Like, he did it all. And when asked to expound on the what do you mean with the run defense question, because last night he was asked a question about the run defense, and he said, we just can't keep doing the same things over and over, right? It's insane to keep trying the same things over and over. And then today he was asked to expound on that, and he said basically that he understands, that the whole organization understands, that at all times they want to keep a shell on the defense. But at times, especially going against a physical team like Detroit, that, yes, is capable of the big play, but is also extremely physical up front and wants to run the ball in the early downs, you got to break out of that shell. You have to break tendency, because the Packers defensively and offensively at times are way too predictable. And so what he's saying is, I get that that's the philosophy, but we got to break out of it. We have to do the unexpected at times. And yet nowhere in that did he seemingly like pin the answer on Joe Barry. So you guys know me, right? I am not nearly as harsh on Joe Barry as others out there. I'm not just on the automatic, like, fire him train. But last night was really bad. Just in totality, across the board, bad. And I'm not seeing how you can use that performance, or really any other performance this year, to say, oh yeah, things are trending in the right direction. At most, what we can say a lot of weeks, and I have said this quite a few times, well, it's not the defense's fault. Like, it's not that bad for the defense that they lost. Well, if that's the best you could say, I don't exactly think the trajectory is pointing upward. So realistically, was it a mistake to bring Joe Barry back? Yeah, in a lot of ways, it probably was. And now, is it a mistake to keep him around? Maybe, but at the end of the day, I still don't see them moving on in season. It just isn't organizationally how they operate. Sorry. Like, it's just how the Packers work. Jeff saying offense looked predictable also. Yeah, it really did. I mean, and LaFleur kind of talked about that in his presser today, saying how like they were already down 24 nothing by the time they ran their 11th play. Well, yeah, a little bit of that's on you, Matt. Um, but ultimately, like it just they see this is a bigger point, and I want to try to condense it. But Jordan Love seemingly plays better when the pressure is on, right? And I don't mean pass rush pressure, I mean mental pressure. And he seems to work better when he can get into a rhythm, make quick throws, easy completions, scheming guys open, like that kind of deal, right? And we've seen it now a couple times, or especially in the second half, things click and he goes. And we know since training camp that Jordan Love is a horrendously slow starter. The first training camp practice of the year, he was slow. Through almost all training camp practices. When did you start hearing about Love finding a rhythm? In the 2-minute drill portion of the practice, which, newsflash, is towards the end of the practice. And then in preseason, we saw it, right? First drives always sucked. How long did we want to keep Love in? That was always the question. How long is Love going to play? And we found out that the answer was until they experienced offensive success, which didn't come until the second or third drive. And now we're seeing in the regular season too. Jordan Love is a slow starter at this point in his career. And yet, we don't seem to amp up the intensity. We don't seem to quicken the pace offensively until we absolutely have to in the fourth quarter. And teams know it. So, yeah, last night was probably the most predictable Matt LaFleur's been all year. The first 3 games, he did throw in some just absurd wrinkles of things that did have some good effect. Matt LaFleur said today in his press conference that the triple option is going to be sticking around. It's going to stay a part of the playbook, even though it hasn't really worked yet. But break out of tendency. It's not just defense. Hell, start the game, no huddle. Like, do something to get the defense backpedaling and not you sitting there for 40 seconds going, all right, how can we throw something into tight coverage this time? Like, there are ways to change it up, and they just seem so resistant to it. You've got enough data now to know about Love's tendencies at this point. Break them. Do better. Yeah, offense was predictable. Mick, look at the practice squad to see big guys, OLDL, who want to hit someone. Yeah. You know, Mick, I was talking earlier defensively about how they're just not to stop the run, right? And defensive wise, like on the practice squad right now, who you could bring up at least as a big body, even though I don't think he's particularly violent, would be like Jonathan Ford. You could bring him up to the active roster, but is he even going to play if you do that? I highly doubt it. They very rarely actually give snaps to 6 defensive linemen. And then offensively, you've got on the interior, you've got like Michael Jordan, practice squad interior offensive lineman who they've signed. You do have a couple tackles, but there's not exactly someone big and mean on the practice squad as it stands right now on either side of the ball. One person coming back who could maybe make a potential impact there would be Luke Tenuta. And I don't know where he is in his recovery, but we're now past 4 weeks, which means the window can begin to open for Luke Tenuta to come back from the injured reserve and be on the 53. I don't think it's going to happen right away, but the window's now open at least. He's someone that maybe, because he's got a little bit of experience inside, maybe you can bring him in to beef it up. Or honestly, I don't even want to do this, but maybe the answer is kick Zach Tom inside and then play Yashmore, because you cannot convince me that Royce Newman is part of the best 5 for your offensive line. And Matt LaFleur preaches best 5, and then trots out Royce Newman like we wouldn't notice, right? Or play Sean Ryan. Ryan is another zone blocker like so many of the guys that they have out there. Again, just like the defense, not built to stop the run. The offensive line isn't built to be ground maulers. They're built to be pass pro guys, and they're very good at pass pro. Last night, notwithstanding, because what the hell was that? it's foundationally not how they operate. It's not what they do. It's not their tendency to go get these big dudes. And here you have the result when you go against teams like Detroit. Peter, in my opinion, LaFleur's calls against the Lions were irrelevant in the first half. Why bring Aaron Jones back to use him so little? I don't understand. All the more as AJ Dillon is at a loss. You know, yeah, Dillon's been bad all year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The thing that I will say is though, last night, like I talked on the stream, right, about sometimes you just need to run the ball like a sacrificial lamb, just to run the ball, right? It ramps up the physicality. Head coach of the Chargers, Brandon Staley, has talked about that before. Sometimes you run the ball just to run because it ramps up the physicality in the trenches for your line. Helps kind of get the juices flowing. So sometimes, even though it's not going to be successful, you still call a run play just to kind of get it going, right? The Packers, Matt LaFleur apparently doesn't really believe in that very much. In regards to Aaron Jones, yeah, I mean, one, he didn't exactly look right when he was out there, but two, how would we know considering he was basically clobbered the millisecond he got the ball? And AJ Dillon, for as rough as he's been this season, it was the same deal. I mean, the line was so atrocious last night. I'm not even sure AJ Dillon being good would have gotten any kind of traction going on the ground. I mean, there was the one play in particular where it was a pass play, sure, but like Love takes the snap, drops back. By the time he's at his drop back, Royce Newman and John Runyon Jr. have already been pushed all the way back into him, and the tackles have come around the edge. Like he's at the peak of his drop and he's already getting pushed to the ground. It's just straight up broken at that point. So then there were calls where they brought in more protection. Use the tight ends for more chip blocks. It didn't matter. The Lions walked right through it. And the thing that I cannot understand for the life of me is Detroit all year and last year is like an average pass rush unit. Like Aiden Hutchinson is very, very good. But then you've got Kaminsky on the other side, who per a lot of metrics is not as good as any of Green Bay's starters, although you wouldn't know it based on last night. Buggs seems to have the game of his life against Green Bay every single time that they play. And so the question is, what is it about Detroit? What is it about their line that Green Bay just can't block? Like Detroit seems to play so much above their standard line when going against Green Bay, and Green Bay seems to play worse. And that's kind of what Matt LaFleur was being all angsty about last night, was like, well, if I knew, I'd fix it. Miserable Goat. For some reason, the Packers prefer fancy before toughness. That's why we always get mauled in postseason by aggressive teams like the 49ers. I mean, that is the that's the glint on Matt LaFleur's armor, right? The thing that I'll say is we know that this is a pattern, right? Go up against the Niners, the Bucks, the Lions, teams that are known for being maulers in the trenches on both sides of the ball, right? And the Packers very well might lose that game. In fact, more often than not, they're probably losing that game when they go up against those teams. The thing that I will offer just a little bit of positivity here with is I feel like in the last couple of years, in several of those games, Green Bay would have entered halftime like they did last night and then not made a compelling comeback chance, right? Now, last night, they didn't get that close, but at least for a little bit there, they were trending in the way of potentially a comeback or against the Saints, right? The one thing that I feel pretty confident saying is that this year's team, the youngins, the baby Packers, seem to have more drive in them to rally, to come back, to get pissed when they're punched down. They just may not be strong enough yet, or skilled, or smart, or whatever, to actually finish off every comeback that they're going to wind up having to do this year. So, yeah, no, you're right. teams like that dominate the Packers. We've got enough trend to say it for sure. At least though, this year's team has some fight to not just roll over and give it up. Can say that. Like one little bit of positivity. Peter saying, hasn't Dylan lost his physicality as he lost weight? I don't think he's really lost weight. I think he's still at about 250 pounds. I have read about how he did do some, he worked on strengthening like a focus of under his quads this year, like calves, ankles, something like that. And so I don't know as if he's so much a total like less of weight, so much as maybe he's just tried to change his body makeup. Regardless, though, I mean, even last night, like take away last night, and AJ Dillon has just been horrendous this year at trying to get his footing, trying to push off, trying to break through contact. So I don't know as if it's so much of a loss of number on the scale, so much as just maybe where the muscles are slightly different. But regardless, can we say he's lost some physicality? Yes. I feel very confident saying that. He has lost physicality. He has lost the drive. And the type of runner that he is, too, has, like, it seems like Dylan gets the ball and then he immediately has someone hanging on him, like every time. And it's not just blocking. Sometimes it's just the way that he chooses to go through the line. And when you're that type of running back who like is a magnet for contact, you best be able to run through contact. Dylan can't run through contact. He's not, at least not this version that we've seen over the last 4 weeks. He's just not capable of it right now. And for Dylan to return to being an efficient, competent running back too, that trait has to come back. Or he just going to keep on middling away. You know, no one's brought it up, but one thing I do want to talk about is the penalty for Quay Walker, right? Yeah, Quay Walker hurdles. Now, I did some reading about this morning, and apparently it's not just the fact that he hurled over a person. It's the fact that he got a running start into hurdling over one of the offensive linemen on the field goal unit. And that is the no-no. Like, that's the automatic, you're going to get a flag. And the thing is, of course, players have responsibility. Of course, players need to know the rules. But whose job is it to ensure the players actually know the rules? That's coaching. And I've seen a lot of people talking today about like, wow, there's Quay Walker again. Another penalty, this one unsportsmanlike conduct. You know, just like the personal fouls last year, he's an aggressive idiot who can't control himself. And all that's nonsense. Like, we have seen, okay, that he's not having the temper that he did last year. But not only that, but he was the team leader in tackles last night with 19 total tackles when you combine both assisted and solo. He was one of the only that was actually tackling with some form of intensity, some form of technique throughout the evening. And so what I'm going to say is, yes, it's the player's responsibility to know the rules. However, I'm going to put this one a lot on special teams coordinator Rich Bisaccia, whose job it is as special teams coordinator to relay to any of the guys who are first string in punt coverage, kick, anything. It's his job to make sure that the players he's got out there know the nuance of the rules inside and out, forward, back. Because as special teams coordinator, frankly, you have the least coordinate. So, like, the details there matter. And there's no reason why one of your starters on those units isn't clear on the rule. Pin a little bit of blame on Quay, sure, but like I gotta pin that one higher up the food chain for just neglecting the duties on that one. I gotta go there. All right. Peter saying Bach being out for the season sounds like a huge blow for Green Bay 2024 cap space. Agree. No, not really. So David Bakhtiari's cap number for next year is $40 million, just rounded. Okay. $40 million next year. Now, 21 of that is his base salary. 19 of that is guaranteed. And most of that is guaranteed because of money that's been pushed forward throughout the last 3 years of restructures. When the season ends, if they cut David Bakhtiari, they get $21 million in cap space. That 19 that has already been pushed out is guaranteed, is on the books no matter what happens with David Bakhtiari. Whether he played every game this year and then he retired, played every game this year and then was cut, doesn't play any more this year and then is cut, retired, retained, doesn't matter. That 19 million stays put. What can get moved is the $21 million portion of the total of his $40 million. So if he retires, if he's cut, that 21 million opens up. If he comes back next year with the contract the way it is, granted it could be restructured, pay cut, whatever, there's things they can do. But if he comes back the way that it is, they will be paying David Bakhtiari $40 million for 2024. And it really has nothing to do with what happens the rest of 2023. So does that make sense, Peter? Jeff saying Charles Woodson got flagged for that back in the day, where he straight up hurdled like an O lineman like Quay did. Because honestly, I don't remember that. But was it a Packer uniform or Raider? Because I very genuinely don't remember that. Steven, at least Clay tried. If he wouldn't have actually touched him going over, I would have said hell yes. At least Clay tried. If you wouldn't have actually touched him going over, I would have said, oh, okay. So you're talking Quay, right? So at least Quay tried. If you wouldn't have actually touched him going over, I would have said. So the reason why Quay got the penalty was because he took a running start to go over the O lineman. He actually didn't touch him, which was really impressive. Like he straight up hurdled him. But the reason why they called it for the penalty wasn't because of touching, wasn't because of anything like that. Like he didn't use the guy's back as a springboard or anything like that, because that's definitely a penalty. It's because he got a running start into hopping over. And that is unsportsmanlike conduct. Mick, it seems like O-linemen are pass blocking nobody more often this year, not getting beat, just ending the play by touching no defensive men. You know, I've noticed the same kind of thing. Like even it's kind of the same thing in run blocking too. Like just more whiffs. Like you're always going to have a little bit of that in pass pro, because the Packers do employ a lot of zone pass pro type protections. Okay. So in pass protection, you are going to wind up with that sometimes, where like as the pass rush is coming in, the O-line spreads out and then there's just no one around you for you to hit, right? And if you go too far out of your lane, then you are opening up the potential for a blitz, right? So like sometimes that's going to happen, but it does feel like it's happening more often in pass pro this year. And I will say too, realistically, especially given David Bakhtiari's out, Elton Jenkins is out, of the 4 games that they've played, last night was probably the first time this year that pass pro was like this horrible problem, right? Coming into this game, we were talking about the Packers being one of the best pass protecting units in football without David Bakhtiari, without Elton Jenkins. They still were very good at pass pro. And then they just forgot last night. Like they just straight up got bullied. So, I mean, like, yes, I would agree that is happening a little bit more often, but it hasn't been a hindrance to their success over the first 3 weeks like it was last night. And it's happening in run blocking too. Like there's an alarming number of run blocking snaps, which then you should really never not get a hand on somebody, where like an O-lineman just whiffs, just straight up misses. And can't have that. Like Jeff saying, yep, okay, so Woodson, okay. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. I don't remember. Steven, our scouts and management failed by not drafting a big boy for run stopping. All our guys seem to be pass rusher types on defense. I was talking about that right at the top. This defense is built to stop the pass, both pass rushing and in the secondary. This defense is not built to really give a crap about the run, to be completely frank. The one guy that they've got that you can define as a big guy who is there to stop the run is TJ Slayton. Maybe Carl Brooks develops into that. He does have a chance, and he has shown some nice stuff against the run, but it's too few and far between. But, you know, all offseason, like I know especially you, Steven, like a lot of you follow me really regularly. And on August, I was saying, like, We could go sign Shelby Harris. If there's one deficiency on this team, it's going to be on the D-line yet. Go get Shelby Harris, who's been one of the best run defenders in the league. He's like 31 years old. He's out there yet. No one signed him. But we did not. And instead, we have 5 D linemen that don't want to stop the run. And then Steven saying Matt might not like running backs, but 200 yards from our challenger is bull. Yeah, right. It was a perfect storm. Too often, schematically, they basically lined up in their base set and then allowed the Lions to walk right through it. There's the one play that's becoming quickly infamous online where the Lions walked up with like their goal line offense. It's like 2nd and goal on the 2. They walk up with their goal line offense, and the Packers stay in their base nickel with 2 defensive linemen, like they stand a chance in hell to stop that play. And then I know Mike Wall put out a clip this morning as well on Twitter of he put that out, another clip on the goal line for the Lions, and they snap the ball, and the David Montgomery starts charging towards the end zone, and the Lions get their 2 double teams on the line. That's exactly what they want. They take out the big guys for Green Bay. But then the next layer, you've got Quay, Savage, a couple others. You're on the goal line, right? If you believe that a dude has the ball, you need to crash the holes, fill them in, get after the running back. And Mike Wall pointed out, none of Green Bay did that. They stayed chilling back. They stayed in their zones. Like Detroit was suddenly going to throw the ball. Like, that's just bad, right? So between just winding up in formations that don't stand a shot in hell to stop the run against Detroit's big guys on the 2-yard line, then you also have players who just stay back and don't crash the run like they were ever going to stop either of those chances. It's coaching, it's players. Oh, and by the way, they can't tackle either. So it's just all of it. All of it. Miserable Goat saying, what would Matt have to do to be on the hot seat? Lose a lot more, and more than just this year. Keep in mind, Matt LaFleur is still under contract for several years. I think, off the top of my head, if I'm counting right, I think it's 4 more years, maybe 3 more. But it's not even relatively warm. His career coaching record to this juncture, I think, is still like 49-21. Like, still, for someone who's coached as little he has, it's still one of the best percentages ever, right? And keep in mind, coming into this year, most predictions for this team were about a 500-ish team. This was the evaluation year. This was the transition year, right? And I know it's probably not what we want to dwell on. It's probably not what we want to hear after getting massacred in Lambeau on Thursday night. But if you would have told any one of us in August, like before the season started, hey, Packers fans, 4 weeks into the year, you're going to have Jair Alexander's going to miss 2 of the 4 games. Dave Bakhtiari is going to miss 3. Elton Jenkins is going to miss 2. Devondre Campbell's going to miss 1. Let's see. Zach Tom is going to get banged up. He's not going to be playing at full health for you. Aaron Jones is going to miss 2 of the 4. Christian Watson isn't going to play until the 4th game, and even though it's only about 20 snaps. You're going to suffer through that, right? What would you have thought the Packers' record would be if I told you that all of those guys are going to miss as much time as they've had? Probably not 2-2, right? And yet, realistically, I know this isn't what we want to hear, but it's true. They're still 2-2. So in the grand scheme of things, even if we're really pissed today, is Matt LaFleur's job not safe? No, like he's really, really safe. He's very safe. He just is. He's locked in the contract for several more years. He has been highly successful to this juncture. Has he made questionable decisions? Yeah. Has he been less than perfect? Yeah. Still very, very safe for the Green Bay Packers. Peter, if Gutekunst were to draft a wide receiver in the 2024 draft first round, at last, would you prefer Man, are you talking 2024 draft rate? Peter, I can't do it. I'm not going to lie to you. So I am not a watcher of college football during the season. I am 1,000,000% focused on the Green Bay Packers. I will not look at any of those guys until the season is complete. I do know Marvin Harrison is obviously the big name, the generational wide receiver of this year, but like, I don't know. Like it's not my personal wheelhouse. I don't deal with that until this year's Packers begin to close down a little bit. So I'm going to plead ignorance on that one. Sorry, Peter. Steven, his records are because of our old team. He ain't a teacher of the youth. Oh, I disagree hard with that. Sorry, Steven. I would. I think he's actually a tremendous teacher. I think at times he's too easy on the youth. And not only that, but I mean, like the Aaron Rodgers offense, like you could argue probably 2020, maybe 2021 was their best shot to actually go to the Super Bowl. And that was before the offense became more Rodgers-esque. It was more LaFleurian than Rodgers. Last year is where it really tipped the scales to more Rodgers, less LaFleur. And we saw how that turned out. No, Matt LaFleur is still a brilliant offensive architect, even if his play calling is questionable at times, which it certainly is. But I very much think he is a teacher of youth. I disagree with the idea that Aaron Rodgers whisked Matt LaFleur to all of those wins. Because, I mean, Rodgers wasn't good before LaFleur got here for a couple of years. That is a very key component of the conversation. So, sorry, I do have to disagree with that one. So, well, hey, looks like I'm all caught up, and I hate to end it on a disagreeing, but it is time for me to get going. Hey, reminder, tonight, 8 o'clock p.m., I'm joining Wisco Fanatics. It's a 4-person panel. We're talking more of this. Like, we're talking about the Packers-Lions game from last night. I'm just one of the 4 panelists. Really looking forward to it. They're great guys. Should be a very fun time. So if you got nothing to do tonight, or check that out this weekend, it's airing live 8 o'clock p.m. tonight. And then on Monday, I'll actually put out like a dedicated pre-recorded piece of content regarding what went wrong in this game and then what the Packers can actually do. I'm going to offer some solutions. So what the Packers can actually do to right the ship heading into Vegas. So thanks everybody for joining me here today. I do hope you had a good time. I hope you're recovering from the loss fine. I know it's time to go focus on something else. So have a wonderful weekend. Thanks so much for joining me here today on Lombardi Time Brews. And as always, go Pack Go.